Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the best Alabama post-game show there is, the Bama Standard post-game show. Alabama defeats Kentucky 49-21. More importantly, the SEC West has been won. Before we get started, we are brought to you today by Workspace Solutions. If your business needs a digital presence or a full-fledged marketing team or a myriad of any other business solutions, they are the ones to contact. Go to workspacepros.com today and get set up. As always, we got a all-star cast. But before I introduce my cast, y'all know what to do. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Live chat, I fully expect y'all to start getting rowdy in just a moment. If you're watching the replay, I want you in the comment section showing us some love there. Let's go ahead and introduce our crew from Crimson Dynasty, the all-star analyst, Payne. Welcome in.
Good to be here. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. And we've got an SEC champion and national champion back again to show us why he was one of the best to ever do it in knowledge and on the field. Chris Owens. Welcome in, sir.
Eating W, eating the West up. Let's go.
I like that. And then from the final whistle, a man who is never short of things to say. He is the illustrious Luscion. What's going on, sir?
What's happening, Bama Nation? Big victory today. Big victory. I love it. I love it all.
And coming in here in just a few minutes to make his diva late appearance is going to be none other than senior analyst of Touchdown Alabama magazine, Stephen M. Smith. I guess he had to attend his personal press conference first because, you know, he is the star. But no, when he comes in, we'll be sure to bring him in and get his thoughts on everything. But we're going to go ahead and get started. 49-21. Jalen Milroe for the second week in the row has showed up. He showed out. Accounted for 5 total touchdowns. He was 16 of 23, 240 yards, passing 3 touchdowns, 7 rushes for 32 yards, and 2 more touchdowns. Really excited to see what he's doing. And, hey, it might even fuel the Heisman push that he started getting here late in the season. Let's go around the room real quick. I know that y'all had some questions going into this room game. So I want to ask, first of all, what kind of questions did you have and how were they answered? Did y'all come away satisfied after witnessing what you just saw? We'll start out with Cishi, then move down to Chris. Luscion will round it out. Go ahead, Cishi.
Yeah, my biggest question was how would we play coming off a win like we did against LSU? I know sometimes when you see teams have these bigger in-conference games, the next game they kind of, they maybe the first half they're playing a little softer. And I was curious if we would play a full 4 quarters again. And I feel like we did, but I do feel like there were, some hiccups here and there where maybe we took our foot off the gas. So my biggest question was how would we play coming off of as big of a win that we did against LSU. And then I wanted to see what Tommy Rees was going to come up with as far as the offensive play calling, but also on the defensive side, looking at, just how we would affect Ray Davis, they're Kentucky's top running back. I mean, I'm like, there's no way he's going to run all over us. And just like we did against Leonard Fournette a few years ago with LSU, we held Ray Davis to under 30, rushing yards. And we do have a super chat from James. Thank you for the donation. A complete game, but Kool-Aid does not belong on returning punts. I agree.
We're definitely going to touch on that a little bit as far as momentum swings and things that affected the game, but we're going to hold off. Put a pin on that, Cishi. I'm going to let you lead that one off. Chris, I know you had some questions going in. Did it match what Cishi was talking about, or do you have a few different questions? More importantly, do they come away being answered the way you wanted them to be?
Yeah, I think my questions were similar, just as far as how we were going to respond after such a big win. 11 o'clock kickoff against the East opponent, someone we don't really play that often. And then I wanted to see how we stopped the run. I knew Kentucky, they couldn't match us point for point, so they were going to try to slow the game down a little bit. Run the ball a lot, like you said. Ray Davis is a really good running back. I know Devin Leary's kind of been inconsistent here and there throughout the season, but just seeing how we would build off of that big win against LSU. And I think they did really well. The O-line controlled the front all game, constant pressure throughout the game as far as the D-line with Dallas and Braz, Q-Rob, everybody up front. Caleb Downs had a really good game as well. So I think all around for an 11 o'clock kickoff after a big game, it was really good.
Luscion, your turn.
I had a couple of questions. One specifically, how our defensive line would do against this Kentucky rushing attack. And I think they more than answered the bell on all three phases of the game. They kept their lanes, they blitzed their gaps, and they played physical for 4 quarters. I mean, even as was watching the game tick down, even the young guys came in and they set the tone on the defensive line. And that says a lot going into this end of the season as we come up on Auburn and, what we got to do here coming up. But another thing was definitely Tommy Rees. I'll agree with the first two that went. I have been a big advocate of Tommy all season, and he's finally getting deep into his bag, which I still think we have only just brushed the very top of what he's about to show us. And he built on what Jalen's performance was last week, and I'm excited to see what is coming in our future. Roll Tide.
Most definitely. And I think my questions definitely mirrored what you guys have already stated. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but most importantly for me, I wanted to see if we were going to have that single game elimination mentality. Do we understand fully what's at stake, or do we feel like the job is already done? All we had to do was just show up and coast. Because in earlier part of the season, when we were still kind of growing, especially from a maturity standpoint, we tend to take our foot off the gas and felt that we could. I don't know if you call it maybe disinterested or maybe overconfident, but I was worried that might be kind of looming in the background. So where are we going to come in and take them out immediately? Or is it going to be a situation where we just let them hang around and we do just enough and to overcome with talent, get out with the W, and then move on to next week? And for me, we came out, we handled business all 4 quarters. We dominated. We didn't just let them be in the game. We took them out early, which one of the biggest things we'll talk about in just a minute was the momentum changed from Terrion Arnold punching that ball out. That's when things really just started to go downhill for Kentucky, and mentally, they just could not recover. Guys, we have the superstar waiting in the wings to be let in. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Stephen M. Smith, welcome in, sir. I'm glad that you could join us today. Being the celebrity that you are, I know that you're being pulled different directions from like Entertainment Tonight, ESPN, and other more illustrious shows. But hey, you decided to be with us. We are glad to have you in, sir. What we're talking about right now, we are kind of going through the questions we had going into this game. What were they? How were they answered? And did we come away satisfied? And what better way to close out the subject is to have you give your thoughts to that.
I feel like number one, this team did not have the relaxed, complacent mentality. I was proud of that. Tommy Rees is definitely now in his bag. He is definitely pulling some stuff out, and I'm proud of him of that standpoint. I thought we could have shut Kentucky out. I thought Alabama had Kentucky shut out. I mean, three things kept Kentucky in the ball game. Number one, Kool-Aid McKinstry's muffed punt. You can't have that. That kept Kentucky in there. Number two, a third down, roughing the passer on Jamarian Latham. I know, big man, you're trying to get a sack there, but you got to be able to, not, have that penalty right there. That kept Kentucky alive right there. And then the officiating crew robbed Christian Story. I mean, flat robbed that man. That man forced a fumble, recovered it, and did not give it to him. Christian Story got robbed, but aside from those 3 plays, I feel like Alabama put their foot on Kentucky's neck, and phenomenal job by the offensive line. This group did not give up a sack. Can we talk about that for a moment? This group did not give up a sack, and let's just say this. The moment Nick Saban said enough is enough, Jaden Roberts, you are that dude. And since we went to him at left guard, this is a completely different offensive line since we went to Jaden Daniels there. Not Daniels, Jaden Roberts at that left guard position there on the offensive line. But I thought Milroe had a heck of a game. Kobe Prentice has been unleashed. I mean, what a matchup what a game by this Alabama team to come out here and put together some style points for this college football playoff committee, led by Blind Boo. No Boo Kerrigan there.
Shout out real quick to Crimson Kings, $1.99 super chat. We appreciate that. That missed fumble on UK's last score pissed me off. Yeah, same here with us. I think we can all agree that score is a little bit misleading. That shouldn't have been an extra 7 for them. However, for whatever reason, the officiating crew felt no need to review that, thus the give me points at the end. Before we move on to the next subject, Chris, can you talk about specifically, piggybacking off of Stephen, Jaden Roberts' progression and what he's meant to this offense? You know, we've been looking for some kind of solidarity the entire season. When was it going to come on the offensive line? Well, it looks like it happened when Darian Dalcourt was pulled in favor of Jaden, and Jaden stepped in there like he was on loan to the NFL. He wasn't a young guy trying to make his way or figure things out. He already knew it. Talk about how he has grown, and more importantly, the offensive line as a whole because of it.
Yeah, when we were in school, he was one of the guys we looked at as somebody who had all the physical tools, big, strong, physical player. But we really wanted to see how he would progress mentally, figure out how he could study the playbook. When would he take the next step of not just knowing what's in his box, but looking second level, even third level, and just playing with confidence. Like, that's one of the things Coach Saban always says, is that you play faster once you're not thinking about what the play is, or you're not thinking about what your assignment is. And so for him to get in there, he finally looks comfortable. His technique is cleaning up by the game. And he's playing fast. He's playing physical. He's not out there thinking too much. And there's not many people his size that he's going to go against. He should maul everyone. And when you've got JC on one side of him, another mauler, you've got Seth who can help him get along with the plays if he does struggle. And you've got a myriad of other things going on with our offense between misdirections, a quarterback scramble, tough run game. I think he complements everything that Coach Saban and Tommy Rees really want to do.
No doubt. Moving on to our next topic here, plays that change the game. We've already talked about a few, just kind of alluding to it. For me, before I handed off to Cishi, it was Terrion Arnold's punch out that causing that fumble there on Brown. And Caleb Downs picking it up, bringing it all the way down to the 1. I think he may have been robbed a little bit. I thought he got in, but hey, we scored on the next play. But when you have a team like this, you got to take them out early. If you let a team like this hang around, they're scrappy and they can get confidence and they can stick around longer than they really need to be. And that shut them down and demoralized them. And they weren't able to really recover. Some might argue that they had a little bit of a spark here and there throughout the game when they got within 14. But I don't think they really did. I think that they are already beat and they were just kind of trying to save face a little bit because of pride. But Cishi, for you, what was the momentum changer for Alabama in this game? Then we'll go to Chris, Luscion, and let Stephen round.
So defensively, I would agree with Terrion's play when he knocked the ball out, but I also think it was a turnover on downs play in the first half that I remember. And I definitely remember that kind of, at least to me, it kind of shifted things a little bit. But offensively, I would say, of course, Kobe Prentice. I know that was very early in the game. That might have been maybe one of our first couple of scores, but, just having that wide open, field, basically field of dreams, like I like to call it, and getting that, it was a beautiful play, to Kobe Prentice, but a part of that was not just Kobe getting the ball, but it was also Jalen's pass. I'm noticing with him, the way he goes through his progressions, his timing, his vision. I'm looking at it on both sides. So not just how well we execute the play, but also Jalen Milroe. I want to see, because we talk about football IQ and you talk about the Heisman and things like that. To me, a part of it is being able to see these quarterbacks progress. Look at Joe Burrow in 2019, the way he was talked about towards the end around this time of the year versus at the start of the season. You want to see that. And to me, those are the elite quarterbacks.
Very well said. Chris.
I think for me, it was that touchdown pass. What was it, Kobe Prentice? When Milroe escaped the pocket and you kind of saw those guys starting to respect his run a little bit and he was able to still throw it over the top. I think at that point, that kind of made them a little bit uncomfortable, seeing that he's not just going to take off. Even though he is breaking the pocket, he's still looking to make a play down the field. So I felt like that had an effect on those linebackers, and you could see as the game went on they start stepping up a little bit more. And then other plays, they might start falling back. And he was just able to scan the field and make whatever plays he wanted. So him making them a little bit uncomfortable with his legs, both on the run and just throwing it in general, I think that was really good.
Absolutely. Luscion, does your choice mirror what they talked about already, or is it something else that stood out to you that you felt like kind of shifted things in a different direction? Well, our favor, really.
I have a little bit of a different take than anybody's pointed out before, but there was a play that had absolute chaos written all over it, that the snap was jumbled. I'm pretty sure we might have put two guys in motion, and we had a guy in the backfield. And then for the first time, I'd say probably in Alabama football history, we actually had the advantage of having that Johnny Manziel type of quarterback that could just magically get us out of danger. And what happened? He flipped it to Roydell for a touchdown.
That was beautiful.
And to me, that really said to me that, you know what? Everybody wants to talk about Jalen missing all of his throws, not getting all of his keys, and he might do all that. But I saw something in that jumble right there that he can be successful in chaos. And that to me says wonders above pretty much everything else I saw today on the offensive side, even though we did see some amazing stuff. But the fact that he can react and be successful in chaos is going to be huge here in the upcoming weeks. And on the defensive side of the football, I would say it's how they responded every time to the refs throwing something in our face, or, you know, maybe the play is not just going away. You know, Saban always harps on having a short-term memory, always being able to get on with the next play. And I felt like our defense has been doing that of late, and they continue to do that. And if they continue to do that and just clean up on some of the little things, I'm telling you, skies.
I hear you. Real quick before Stephen M goes, JD Long, $9.99. Jalen Milroe for Heisman. Love y'all. Roll Tide. Talk to us, Stephen. What did you see? Does your choice mirror these guys? Or this young lady, or was there something else you may have seen?
I thought the one thing, you know, offensively that I really enjoyed was just the play design of Tommy Rees. There are about 5 to 6 plays where I'm going is Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, and Michael Knoxley and Tommy right now, because the design of these plays. The first touchdown to Amari Nyblack, that was a gorgeous design. The design to Kobe Prentice, the design play to C.J. Dupree, where he caught it in like the middle of the field. That is like on all of these designs, I'm like, Tommy is hitting them, bing, bang, boom, like he's been waiting to pull this mess out. Like, I'm really thinking, is this Lane Kiffin in a Tommy Rees suit? Is this Steve Sarkisian in a Tommy? Like, what is this? Like, he's been waiting to kind of pull this out. Like, the design that Tommy Rees put on display, I really thoroughly enjoyed that. You know, offensively, defensively, and this is one of your guys, Justin. How about Justin Eboigbe? The last couple of games where he's played, batting down balls, creating pressure, you know, stopping the run, his draft stock is increasing. You look at the job that Jihad Campbell did today, taking over Deontay Lawson, the way that he played out there. And then, I mean, Terry on Arnold's a baller, but my God, Caleb Downs. This dude was flat everywhere. Flat out everywhere. All over the field. I'm like, my God, I'm like, this dude ain't no 18, 19 years old. It's a 25-year-old kid that we loaned from the CFL or something. Like, Caleb Downs is something, that dude's special. That dude is flat special. So I'm just saying, I enjoyed the play design of Tommy Rees. I know for a lot of us, we're waiting on Tommy. How long, dude? Like, how long? But now we're like, okay, we just had to give the man some time. Like, this is his first year of Coach Saban, as it is for a lot of these guys. So big ups to the Tommy Rees. He finally took a first half and a second half and put it together.
No kidding. And, you know, Luscion, you talked about this with me, I think it was last week, how, you know, we've all been a little impatient when it comes to this offense this year. but we've forgotten what the process looks like. I believe you said it to me, Luscion, and I think that we have been so spoiled with just how everything is been so fluid and so easy for us. We've been able to just plug and play like that, not even blink. We just continue on with a next group of offensive athletes and not look back. But now we had to kind of go back, and everybody had to learn each other, including Tommy Rees had to learn who he had. They had to learn him. And we had a quarterback that wasn't like a Bryce Young who can just trot out into the field and be an all-star. He had to have that fill it out moment. And now we're seeing the fruit of all that. Would we have liked it before now? Yeah, most definitely. I think our anxiety would have been alleviated. However, it's coming at the right time. It's coming at the time where we got to show something. Single game elimination. That's what every single game is at this point. We're fighting our opponents, and we're also fighting the playoff committee, who looks like they don't particularly want Alabama in the mix of things, and they're hypocritical when making their decisions. So we can't do anything at this point that's going to cause any kind of, negative light on us as far as the committee is concerned. But we are coming to the table at the right time and becoming Alabama again. I'm excited to see that. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. You want to go, Stephen?
Oh, I mean, I was just going to say that I felt like this moment right here, if you're the college football playoff committee, if you're Boo Kerrigan and company, you got to look at this and go, this is not the same Alabama team that lost to Texas. There is no way on this earth that this is the same Alabama team that lost to Texas. This team has gotten tremendously better each and every week this season since that game and that matchup. And sometimes we do kind of forget that every team is new. Every team is different. This is even a new team for Coach Saban, to where this is his best coaching job in terms of he's teaching. He's not necessarily coaching. He's real deal teaching these young men how to play through adversity, how to win hard, and how to deal with difficulty. Like, he's teaching all of these guys how to do that. We've seen Nick Saban go through stuff that he's got a popped blood vessel in his eye. When have we ever seen Coach Saban kind of go through that whole thing? We're dealing with Coach Saban, who has to deal with Miss Terry challenging him. I mean, I know that's every day, Terry Saban, but my God, even Terry saying, baby, get after some folks, yell at some folks, cuss some folks out, break some handsets, do something out there. So we're even seeing Nick Saban in more rare form than normal, but he's enjoying this because the guys are listening to him. The coaches are listening to him, and everything's kind of started to really sort of mold and gel together. And I think Bama loves it when people count them out. This is the Alabama team that's been looked over. And everybody say, well, look at Georgia, look at Washington, Oregon, obviously the teams, and you're counting out Alabama. Now that whole Terrion Arnold, Jalen Milroe lank mentality, the letting all the naysayers, now that lank mentality has really come out, and it's been meant for this team, because this team has been the one to want to say, let's let everybody know what we are for real.
Right. And I want to piggyback off of that. Just, going back to what you were saying, Justin, as far as like the playoff committee and just kind of, where their headspace tends to be. And one thing that I want to say in that regard, so I remember Tyler Booker mentioned a couple weeks ago that the goal is to be 1-0 every single weekend. And of course, that's everyone's goal, right? But I think when you look at it from a committee perspective, one thing that I've always said, and I'm going to continue to say, is that, we talk about strength of schedule, but what about the strength of conferences as well? Because my biggest concern is that you have a Washington, although they haven't lost a game yet in the regular season, you have a Washington, you have an Oregon. And you look at the teams that Alabama's and Georgia's, our teams play, to me, it's not an apples to apples comparison. So I don't understand, like I said on the Crimson Dynasty this week, any SEC team with only one loss, to me, is better than any unbeaten team in any other conference. And I stand on that. And so to me, it just really makes me wonder. I think they need to go back to the fundamentals when it comes to the playoff committee and just figure out, because that's a part of where biases comes in, when you have that human error, that human factor. factor. It's not just like a computer system with all these different algorithms, because, we also have to consider that you have the athletic director before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
When I was watching him play today, one thing that I thought about is one of my engineering professors. He used to always tell us, what I see you do here in the classroom when you take this test or when you take the exam shows me a lot of what you're doing outside of class. And so when I saw him, I'm like, okay, this isn't a guy that's just practicing every week, that's just showing up. He's doing more than that. Whether it's meeting with certain guys who are now in the NFL, maybe a Jalen Hurts or someone, you can tell that it's not just a position for him. You know what I mean? Like, this is more, and it's not just about him, it's about the team. And so I just like what I'm seeing with him. I think that if you're on the playoff committee and you have any sense, including Boo Carrigan, if I were him, I would want as much as possible to not make the same mistake that I made last year when I put TCU in that top 4 and they go and they get knocked out by Georgia. It's just things like that shouldn't happen. And so I think even as far as the financial side of things, imagine the amount of money that they lost doing that, because SEC teams, we travel. So I don't know, but I definitely think that Alabama should be a part of the discussion.
One of the worst things that could possibly happen is if Ole Miss finds a way to win tonight and they move up in the polls. Then the committee really has to do some work and decide who needs to go where. Luscion, you're holding your pen up, man. Go ahead and talk your talk, sir. And like I said, you gave me the idea for this discussion here when we talked this past week. So piggyback off of that. Let me hear your thoughts, sir.
So I know that everybody in Alabama Nation has kind of been highly judgmental of the offense, Jalen Milroe, and it's gotten better. But now recently we're as a fan base, we're getting really big into this committee. And I think that everybody, when this happens, should refer to Saban. Like I alluded to Justin last week when we talked about this. As a fan base and as an Alabama Nation, we forgot how Bama was built. It wasn't built on the back of Ferraris, and it wasn't built on the back of Lambos. It was built on the back of hard-nosed, blast, bloody knuckles football. So in saying that, we also have to remember that the committee has to catch up to that. And Saban knows that, and he also respects the process. That's why he ain't worried. He knows that if we stay 1-0 the rest of the season, and I'm going to say this to every Walmart, every Alabama fan that has any type of doubt in their minds where we're going to be, no matter what this college football committee is saying, because there is no way that if we finish the season 1-0 every weekend, going up until December, and then we finish in December 1-0, we will be in the college football playoff. And Bama Nation, hear me when I say this. We get in that playoff like I'm saying we're going to, we bring it home another natty, because no one in this country wants to try and defend Jalen Milroe with 2 of our receivers, let alone if they're all healthy. And the way Tommy Rees is calling plays right now, I'm telling you, it's only going to get better. We as a nation cannot ever forget to trust the process. It's a long thing, the process. It don't happen quick. It's a process. So you have to be patient. Like some of us on this panel, most of us in Bama Nation have been with Jalen and watched him succeed. But I know there's those few of you that are still judging like, maybe Jalen ain't it. I'm here to tell you, I don't want to see you later in the year, because I'm here to tell you Jalen Milroe is my guy. He's a Heisman frontrunner. But most importantly, that doesn't matter. Jalen Milroe has one goal. This team has one goal, and it's to hoist a national championship. And they work every day hard as hell to get that goal, and it's showing every weekend.
Chris Owens, you'll be the last one just to speak on this, man. Talk about the growth. Were you impatient at times? I know at the beginning of the year you said national championship, and I don't want to hear it from anybody else. But things didn't go as quick as we'd hoped. Did you still remember the process, or were you a little bit frustrated?
I think the player in me, naturally, I was just a little frustrated. Knowing the personnel we have and knowing how I would use them, it was a little frustrating to see that we were kind of babysitting our way through the first couple weeks. But I figured at some point especially once you get to the bye week and you get to like the Tennessee, the LSU games. That's when we kind of start putting things together. But as far as like us making the playoffs, I was in that situation my last season. We took a loss to A&M, and it was similar to this team. It was every week was 1-0. It was 1-0 all the way through December. We finished December 1-0. We end up where we need to be. And so I'm sure they have that mentality. Coach Saban has brought up the past before about how previous teams have been in similar situations, and they just put their head down, like Luscion says, and they just go to work. There's no reason to worry about what the committee's doing because they're going to try to position everything. Oh, well, if this team loses, then we have this to fall back on. We can't worry about that. All we can do is just play who we have on our schedule, make sure we try to win games like we did last week, like we did this week, just dominate the rest of the games and kind of take it out of the chance. You don't want it to be, is it TCU? Is it Alabama? Oh, let's give them the nod because they lost in the conference championship game. Just take it out of their hands and just play good football.
Absolutely. Stephen and Smith, you had another point you wanted to make regarding this. Go right ahead, sir.
I know I got two before I hop off. I got two right here. And so one of my two echoes to Lucion's point. So for a lot of the Bama fans that are still kind of up in the air when you look at Jalen Milroe and this team, it's crazy how, because I majored in journalism in college, but I'm a history person. History repeats itself, people. It always tends to do so. You go back to that 2015 Alabama team. It's crazy how this team directly mirrors 2015. People had a lot of doubts about Coker going in. And look at what Coker did. It was gradual for Coker. But overnight, it was gradual, Jacob Coker. People didn't start believing in Coker until he ran over the DB against A&M. And then folks was like, whoa, okay, Coker. But it took Coker a bit to get that step. Remember, the Alabama wide receiver room was trying to grow itself. It wasn't until late that Calvin Ridley sort of started to establish himself as the guy. Now you're seeing Jermaine Burton establish himself. Here comes Isaiah Bond. Here comes Kobe Prentice. But it was a gradual thing. Defensively, kind of the same deal. So, and that 2015 team lost to Ole Miss early at Bryant-Denny, and you had the Dan Wolken USA Today article, which Saban ran off wide with that. But that team came together and ended up being the team that was a national championship. Derrick Henry was a Heisman Trophy. Here is this 2023 team. Before the season starts, Jalen Milroe has plus 300 odds to even win the job. Going back to Vegas, he's benched for Tyler. I don't know why he's here, Buckner, and that whole thing. And so now people are starting to see, okay, this team looks directly. Like, I mean, call me a Vegas handicapper, but it's directly the 2015 team in your face. So I really like the growth here of this group from start to bottom. So that's echoing Lucian's point. History repeats itself. But then number two, I go back to the offseason. There was so much naysay about the coordinator hires. You know, Kevin Steele, why are we bringing a 65-year-old man back in here? The game has passed him by. We could have gotten so many other people. Do people not realize in the second half of games, Kevin Steele has completely shut down some of the best offenses in college football in the second half of games. Has completely shut them down. Like, Pete Golding made it a travesty for Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell. Look at what Kevin Steele's done with these two. Dallas Turner looks like a top 10 pick. Chris Braswell looks like a top 20 pick. I mean, look at what Kevin Steele's done. Terrion Arnold has played his way into being a first-round draft pick. Look at what Kevin Steele has done with these guys. I was in the room when Kevin Steele said back in August, the talent's here. We just got to have him playing relentless football. He's got him playing relentless football. I mean, look at this. And then you got Tommy Rees. The people are like, oh, God, why we couldn't get somebody else in here? Oh, God, Tommy Rees in here. Keep your underwear on, people. Look what Tommy Rees has done. It's taken Rees a minute, but Rees has gotten his act together, and now Rees is calling these plays. So for a lot of people, I feel like they want the stuff instantly. But people, y'all got to realize the best food ain't instant. The best food is when your grandma get that crock pot out and it take it allowed to simmer. get that right juice flowing, and then that food tastes legit. So sometimes crock pot Bama is that Bama that you need. This is crock pot Bama, and I'm gonna have my pork roast at the right time.
It's so funny, Stephen M. You're so professional on so many levels, but then you just can't suppress the country in you at times, and it's great when it comes out.
I'm just saying, man. Hey,
and it drives home the
look, man.
point like no other, sir, and we appreciate that.
Look, man, everybody, look, you gotta love sometimes some pork roast.
Yes.
A little bit of that, green bean, potato in there, some collard greens on them, that thing, some cornbread. And that stuff takes time to cook. That ain't no Wendy's burger. That takes some time. This Alabama team took some time to come together. But when that thing come together, my God, it's some good stuff.
Why you sound like Courtney Upshaw? Touch that thing.
Sunday dinner.
Touch that thing, fool. Touch that thing, man. You gotta enjoy that. But I'm gonna look. I'm gonna take my country eating self off here. Y'all enjoy yourselves.
Yes, sir. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Roll Tide, sir.
Tide, Steven.
Don Lewis Love is throwing $5 our way. As pertain to Kool-Aid, it's distracting trying to field a punt with your mouthpiece bouncing around in front of your face. Well, that's one of the things, but I want to touch on this briefly, and then we'll move on. We've kind of talked about Kool-Aid each week, and I'm still not understanding the thought process behind continuing to put him back there. I view him as a liability. If anybody wants to argue with me on that, please do. Explain to me why he should be kept back there. But he had a critical turnover, and thankfully it was Kentucky, and it wasn't a major opponent, because anybody else, like say a Georgia or maybe down in the playoffs, an Ohio State or whoever we may face, is going to capitalize off of that. So how much more time do we continue to allow Kool-Aid to spend back there and potentially be a major problem waiting to explode on us? Chris, start out with us, and we go to CC and Luscion.
I don't know. I think at this point, just let him be a corner. That's what he does best. We know what he can do in a return game if he's confident, if he's fielding the ball properly, but there's just an issue right now, and there's too many other guys that can step into that role and not have those issues. And so just let him go out there, let him be a shutdown corner, let him get his rest, and that's it. There's no need to keep putting him back there. It's been well over a month of issues.
I agree. And you got a guy like Kendrick Law who is showing flashes of greatness, and he's ready to become unglued. And I feel like when you give him that go ahead, it's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. Sishi, weigh in.
Yeah, I agree. And if I remember correctly, what we saw with Kool-Aid on that punt return, didn't we see the same thing when we played South Florida? Was it the South Florida game? I thought so. And to me, that was the time to make that change. Now, honestly, if I'm coaching the special teams, I would put one of our, good young receivers back there for punt return. I mean, even like one of my guys that I like to talk about is Jalen Hill. And I know we finally saw him in the second half, but I think, of course, like a Jalen Hill, I would have said Emmanuel Henderson Jr., but I think he's still out on injury. But put one of the receivers back there. I understand maybe not wanting to put Kendrick Law if they're trying to work him into more of the schemes, if you will, but at the same time I feel like we have a lot of options. It's no excuse. And so I don't know what the special teams coach is seeing. There is a reason why he's keeping him back there. I just want to understand what that is, and then I think that they need to look into other options.
Good point. Luscion, close it out.
Man, I've been trying to wrap my head around this for a long time, and I started thinking about it real hard at the end of this game. And I think the reason is because if you look at all the other players that we have that could potentially be returners, in Tommy Rees's scheme at that point in the game might not be the time to risk said player on a punt return. When we have, and I'm not going to say, I don't want to say an overly amount of talent at this position, but I think Saban might be hanging Kool-Aid out there just because I think he feels that is one of the most, and as you see, the other position that he has back there would be a running back. I think he feels that our defensive back room and our running back room are the deepest and mature position groups. That could potentially be why we see Kool-Aid and always a running back as our kick returners. But other than that, I don't have any clue because Kool-Aid gives me white hairs watching him back there, man. I ain't gonna lie. But I mean, especially when we got electrifying other players like Isaiah Bond, Manuel Henderson, like there's Cole Adams, for instance. I mean, I've been hearing like that dude's just lightning in a bottle. But the other thing is Saban trusts maturity and consistency. So maybe these guys aren't doing what they need to do in practice. And like I said in the last segment, I unequivocally trust the GOAT. So the fact that Saban's got him back there, no matter how much I hate it, and we hate it, Bama Nation, we got to trust it. It's blind leadership right here, but I'm going to trust him.
Okay. Hard to argue that right there. All right. Moving to our next segment before we start naming our players of the game. I like at the end of every game to talk about what's next. Where do we go from here? Obviously, next week, our opponent isn't that much of a powerhouse. We're playing Chattanooga. So what do we expect to see as far as, our regular players, and how much of the young guys are going to get an opportunity to jump onto this stage and start really building for themselves for next year? And then two, where do you feel like the committee is going to be come selection time on Tuesday? Let's start out with Sishi. We'll go to Chris, and then Luscion will wrap it up.
Right. So I'll say, and this kind of segues into our next game against Chattanooga, but I'll say this particular game, one thing that I said on the Crimson Dynasty is that I wanted to see us utilize our tight ends more, but not just for blocking. And so I was happy to see, our tight ends, Amari Niblack, CJ Dupree, I like to see them get their hands on the ball. And I want to see more of that next week. But I also want to see Robbie Oots and Miles Kitselman and also Danny Lewis Jr. I think next week is going to be key to get those younger guys out there, true freshmen, Danny Lewis Jr., see Jalen Hill out there a lot more, Richard Young, Justice Haynes, Jam Miller. I like that we're working him into the games a little earlier than we started out the season doing. But I think those younger guys, the Richard Youngs, the Justice Haynes, because we have to remember we got some very, and it's crazy to even think that some of our best true freshmen that we have, a lot of them came out of the state of Georgia. Justice Haynes, Caleb Downs, Dylan Larnaghy is another guy that's out of Georgia. So I just think that for one, that speaks volumes, being able to recruit like we did out of a state where their team, Georgia, won the national championship. So that, to me, that says a lot. I think that we need to get those true freshmen out there next week. Maybe have Jalen Milroe the first, quarter, maybe up until the second half, maybe halfway through the second quarter. But honestly, I would get Ty Simpson out there and Dylan Larnaghy. I don't think we need to waste time. I was surprised that we kept Milroe out as long as we did today. I didn't think that we really needed to. It shouldn't have taken 3 full quarters to pull him out. So I definitely think we need to see Dylan Larnaghy out there. He's just, to me, he's that prototypical guy that he just needs more time on the field, and then he's just gonna let it fly. But yeah, definitely a lot of the young guys, more tight ends. I'd like to see Tommy Rees kind of play around a little bit in terms of creativity, because we're going to need that going up against, Auburn the following week.
No doubt. And the second part of that question is, where do you see the playoff committee putting us next week? Of course, it's really hard to figure out what in the world their train of thought is at this point.
Well, they
contradict themselves,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There is no train of thought, because, I honestly feel like they're looking at numbers. I feel like they're strictly looking at numbers. So everyone who hasn't lost a game, who has a 0 in that second column, then, okay, well, they're the top 5 teams. Well, not necessarily. And that's why I go back to Washington, for example. My thing is that if you're going to talk about strength of schedule, then you also have to look at the strength of conference. That's why you see, what happened to TCU last year, where they go and they win these, in conference games, but then they go and they play a Georgia, or they play a team that really, is about something, and they can't handle it. So I just think that, the playoff committee, personally, I think that we should be ranked above Oregon. And I would arguably say Washington too. I mean, and it's a part, and I would say maybe some biases there, but at the same time, look at the Alabama team right now. We could literally beat anyone who's ranked ahead of us, and I stand on that. So I definitely think that we should be, maybe number 6. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. You don't just look at strength of schedule. You also look at who is playing undoubtedly their best ball right now. This is an Alabama of September 9th. And that's another point that people try to communicate to us, that the committee, when making their selections, are going to say, okay, is this team playing better at this point than this team that's ahead of them? But clearly they're not, because Oregon should not be ahead. They got strength of schedule against them. They're not playing as good a ball as Alabama right now. So which is it? What is the ultimate determining factor? The only thing we can do is do our job, win out, and let them decide for themselves. But as far as next week, now I'll give it to Chris. Cici, I agree. I feel like Ty Simpson probably should have gotten in more in this game, especially when we saw Jalen limping around. I think we all collectively across Tide Nation took a big gasp, because we thought, hey, he may be out. What happens now? And this is where Ty needed to be getting meaningful reps as far as confidence and growth and establishing on the field chemistry. Yes, there is practice chemistry, but it's different. And as we saw from Ty today, dude's got a hell of arm. My gosh, that ball placement, that platform throw he threw late in the game, good night. That's an NFL type throw. We need to see more of him. God forbid if Jalen has to come out. Ty needs to be ready. And this game, this coming week, is a great opportunity for him to become that guy. Chris, go ahead, man. Talk about what's next and where we sit in terms of the eyes of the committee.
Yeah, so I see a couple people in the comments saying we should rest our starters. That's not happening. That's never happened under Coach Saban. It's not going to happen now. If anything,
don't ask him.
Yeah, we need to build on the momentum that we have now. I do agree with everyone else that we need to get them out pretty early, take care of our business early. But as far as resting guys, that's just a lot to ask on college players who have a big game coming up, rivalry game on the road. We need to be as consistent as we can. Work in some of those younger guys, maybe work on some things that didn't work as well early in the season. If you really like those things, let's try to come back to those throughout the week of practice, maybe in the game, see if we can catch lightning in the bottle. But other than that, it should be a time where we build momentum and play a complete game. And as far as the committee, I don't know. I had probably like an hour and a half conversation with my mom about this. I want to say like Thursday. I think the domino that's missing right now, we need Florida State to somehow slip up, because I don't think they belong in that category. They're kind of the team that the committee is just placing there because of their record. You can make a case for Michigan as they beat Penn State today, Georgia. They have the pedigree. They haven't lost. Maybe even Washington. But there's teams up there that are just strictly ranked up there just based on they haven't lost yet. Or in Oregon, they lost to the undefeated team. If Oregon had lost to any other team, if they lose to USC, they're not ranked ahead of us. Even if Texas beat us, we're still playing better football than them right now, more consistent football. So I think once we see the Florida State domino fall at some point, which I believe it will, then everything will kind of fall in line. Ohio State, Michigan play each other. That'll take care of itself. Oregon and Washington play again. That'll work itself out. Like we've been saying this whole podcast. So just our job is to be 1-0, let all the chaos unfold in front of us, and we'll reap the benefits at the end of it.
Luscion, it's your turn, sir.
I 1000% agree with what Chris said. We're not going to rest our starters. What we do need to see, I think, is not necessarily getting the whole rotation out. I think we need to see a good, healthy rotation in depth at 3 main position groups. And that's our D-line, our secondary, and our wide receivers. Because I already feel like our tight ends have a nice, healthy rotation. But those 3 groups I just went into, if we could make that defensive line rotation go from 5 or 6 to maybe 7, 8, and 9 in this next couple weeks, going up into what we have to go into, which we all know what's about to happen, that bodes better for us and keeping players fresher for the back end of our season, also in the secondary and as receivers too, because teams are going to start to key in on what our receivers have done. And this is the perfect time for someone that hasn't shown necessarily that they're that guy on our team in our wide receiver room, but that might get an opportunity in a one-on-one to make a huge play for us. And that's why I think you're going to see our wide receivers get a healthy rotation next week. Now, as far as the committee, I hope they keep us at 8. I really do. The best thing for us is people to keep slapping us in the face. I love it because I love breaking people's hearts come January. And like I said, it's going to happen again. So college football committee, go ahead, put us at 8. You know what I'm saying? Because eventually, after we keep on winning and keep on beating people into the ground, you're not going to have a choice. We're going to take that from you this year. We're not giving you that. Flat out.
Justin, question.
Hey.
Do you know the fundamental reason why the playoff committee each year they don't release their first rankings until the very end of October? Is there a reason? I believe I know what it is, but is it like any public knowledge reason or anything like that?
No public knowledge reason. I mean, I guess at that point in the season is when you start to see maybe separation between teams in the top 25 or top 10. Really, you really start to see who's legit, who is not. They kind of weed themselves out, and you start really seeing the true contenders.
Yep.
Except for this year. This year is really, really weird. There really is no team that's heads and tails above anyone else. Georgia, there is a small degree of separation, but it wasn't like Georgia last year. It wasn't like Georgia the previous year. Ohio State, you definitely can't say that they're really separating themselves from anybody else because they're struggle winning, but they're winning and they're beating teams that are ranked. So, and Michigan, that's just a joke in itself. I don't really give any weight to them beating Penn State. Everybody beats Penn State in the games that matter. I love James Franklin. Don't get me wrong, but he just never can win the big game. That's the constant knock against him every single season. He can never quite turn that corner. And Michigan always reveals who they truly are when it comes playoff time. But ESPN and all these other platforms are going to continually pump them into our minds, making us think that they're deserving. They're a whole lot better than what we see. They're going to win a national title. I mean, my gosh, Desmond Howard has picked them to win the national championship for 10 years in a row. I mean, it's called what it is. If I had to pick anybody right now in that top 10 who is legit, I would say Georgia. And then I also say Washington. Other than that, I don't buy it. But what's your reason?
I personally think there's a reason why they don't rank until the end of October. And I think a part of that has to do, because if you think about it, my question is these 13 people who are selected to be a part of the committee, there's a reason why they don't release rankings in the first, not 8 or 9 weeks. And I think a part of that is because they know that what we're seeing with Alabama is what typically happened and what should happen. You should see teams progress throughout the season. So if they're going to wait until the very end of October 31st to release their first rankings, to me, that means that, to be honest, forget the AP poll at that point, because if that's the case, then get rid of the playoff committee. You don't need them. So to me, this playoff committee, when they release their first rankings, I understand the very first rankings to kind of match AP poll. But after that, everything else is out the door. It doesn't matter that you're 5-0 or that you're 9-0, whatever the case may be. That goes out of the window. I think that they should, like you say, you actually hit the nail on the head when you first started speaking about it, that it has a lot more to do with where you are right now and what you do going forward. Our win against LSU, Oregon should have been behind us then. To me, Washington, because at that point, it's like, well, are you really? You got an Alabama team beating LSU, the so-called Heisman runner. I mean, Jaden Daniels, we thought he may still win, but honestly, I feel like there's no justification there. And I think because we're talking about it in terms of the committee, we understand kind of where the mind is and, why they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But hopefully that changes.
Yeah, I agree. And it does get frustrating when we beat LSU to the degree that we did. You think in the back of your mind, okay, if we're getting a boost in the polls, it comes now. And because we all saw how they were propping up LSU. I mean, they were even saying that, hey, if LSU wins out and they beat Georgia, even with 2 losses, how do you keep them out? They're playing the best football in the nation right now. And then all of a sudden, that narrative didn't get played out the way they predicted. And here's Alabama beating their anointed champion, still sitting at number 8.
Think about it, Justin. We lost to Texas by 10 points. We dropped almost like 7 or 8 spots in the rankings. We beat LSU. That was ranked in the top 15. We beat LSU by 14 points and we stay at the same. It doesn't logically make sense, in my opinion.
No, I'm almost willing to go back to the BCS system.
With Arizona State University, who is 1-6 and beat them 15-7. I mean, like,
everybody has that oops game. So
they've had more than one, though. They haven't been playing that hot. I mean, it's just like, if they're not going to go by the numbers, if you're going to go ahead and say your committee's based out of the Big Ten, then go ahead and just say your committee's based out of the Big Ten and the Pac-12, because that's clearly the only thing that matters. Because they've been hating on the fact that the SEC actually plays teams with offenses, and wait for it, we play defense in this part of the country, which they don't do in the West or the North for that matter. You look at Penn State, everyone's like, well, Penn State has a great defense. Do they have a good offense? No, they don't. Washington's playing these teams that, so they were in a barn burner against USC. USC got taken to the grid line with Colorado. Like, what are you really like trying to make the narrative in college football here? If you're going to compare some of these teams, but keep that narrative constant. Don't change it from week to week. Well, Arizona State had a tough game against, Washington. Everybody has that slip up. Okay, so then what about these next couple games that they had a not so tough game? If you're going to say that, then they're not a top team in the country. Flat out.
Okay. And yeah, to your point, Luscion, if you want to look at defense in terms of out west, in the Pac-12, there is only one team whose defense is ranked in the top 25, and that's Utah.
Yeah.
Who's winning right now, by the way?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And no offense, Washington's got to play 3 straight teams back-to-back to actually have defenses. So I don't think they're finished and undefeated. I think that streak's going to end very soon for them. Same with all the other tops in the country.
Yeah,
Time will tell.
because we taking care of that personally.
Right now it's 14-10 Utah.
All right, now it's time to move on to players of the game, where we select an offensive and defensive player of the game before we close it on out. She start us out, then we'll move over to Luscion and let Chris end this segment out.
So you know how I do. It's hard for me to pick one, but for justifiable reasons. So on the offensive side of the ball, I have to give it, partially to Jalen Milroe. We saw him take that nasty hit, but I'm glad to see that he kept that fire underneath him. He didn't give up. He didn't let that really rattle him. Jalen Milroe and the entire O-line, shout out to Caden Proctor, because I feel like this entire season, everyone has been we have to remember that he's a true freshman, so for one, for him to even get out there and start speaks volumes. But for 2, Jalen Milroe, I don't think he was sacked at all tonight. And so to me, it just speaks volumes of how much they've improved within just a couple of weeks, to be honest. So I would definitely say Jalen Milroe and the entire offensive line. But then on the defensive side, Caleb Downs, another true freshman out of the state of Georgia, we have to give him his props. He's been consistent the entire season. Like, I'm sure every coach in the nation is literally punching the ceiling. Like, I wish I had a guy like that, Caleb Downs. But then I will also say Chris Braswell on the defensive side. He played very physical, and he was pretty consistent as well. So those are my guys.
Fair enough. Luscion, who you got?
I mean, defense, it's simple to me. Caleb played a hell of a game. Don't get me wrong, and I'm one of his biggest fans. But my player of the game on defense has got to be Terrion Arnold. That dude, the ghost, I'm telling you what, Lank is different. He's bringing an attitude to this secondary that we have not seen in some time, and I absolutely love it. And on the offensive side, player of the game, I'm going to give it to Roydell Williams. Roydell Williams did some unnasty stuff that's not going to show up in your stat book, but he definitely played physical. He took advantages of his opportunities. But I also saw him on the sideline coaching up the younger backs when they were in on how to read coverages and cover blitzes. So those are my 2 players of the game.
I like that. A little unorthodox, but yeah, he was big today. He's been on fire these past several weeks, and he's just not getting the clout he deserves. Man, keep giving the ball. Feed that man. My gosh. And let it be against Auburn. Let him run for 200. Chris, who were your offensive and defensive players of the game?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with everyone else. Caleb Downs, he was really good. I want to say, who was it? Jordan Rogers on the commentary.
Yes.
He brought up a good point when he said that he's playing great football on all 3 levels. So in the secondary, in the box, and making plays at the line of scrimmage. And when you get a guy like that can really bolster your run defense, especially, you can't get that. It's really good. So I'm gonna go with him. And on offense, I'm gonna go with the O-line. I know I always do. I'm a little biased, but we killed them for however many weeks, and they're peaking at the right time. I think they can play with 5, 6 guys rotating in there. It doesn't matter who you put in there at this point. They're all consistent. They're all in unison. Run game, pass game. I think we've seen Caden Proctor grow over the season. He's feeling more comfortable. His technique looks more consistent, whether it's a speed rusher, a power rusher, no matter what type of player he's going against. So I'm gonna go with the O-line.
I can't blame you there, buddy. I mean, that is definitely not a wrong answer. If that was a Family Feud question, it'd be the number 1 or number 2 answer. I'm not like Steve Harvey, but hey, that'll work. For me, I'm going to follow suit with you, Chris, but I'm going to be more specific when it goes to my offensive player of the game. I do have 1A, 1B, and maybe even a 1C. I'm going to go 1A, Jalen Milroe. It goes without saying, no one in the country has had better growth than Jalen Milroe. And for all the Alabama fans who were jumping ship early on, thinking that we were going to book our tickets to the Independence Bowl, shame on you, because what we're seeing right now is exactly what we projected in our minds to happen. We were just a little bit more patient and mature about it. So all you Walmart Bama fans who are going to be lined up to get his autograph after the season, I want you to remember where you were a few months ago when you're saying Alabama loses 4 or 5 games easy if Jalen Milroe is the quarterback. Okay. No, B, Caden Proctor. We haven't heard his name called the past several weeks, have we, guys? No, we haven't, because he's grown. He's matured. All those little problems that he was having before starting to go away. And the thing is, he's doing it against better opponents. He's facing pretty significant edge rushers these past few weeks. He's doing his thing. And then Jaden Roberts, the powerhouse, the guy who started it all. You have to put him in the conversation every week for player of the game, because what we're seeing right now doesn't happen without him being inserted into the lineup. Defense, short and sweet. We all know Caleb Downs. Like Stephen F. Smith said, he's 25. He's playing like an NFL veteran already. I want to see a birth certificate, because I don't believe this kid is 18, 19 years old. There is no way whatsoever. But yeah, that's who I got. Before we head on out, I want to go around the room, let everyone pop what they got. For those of you who have shows, pop your shows. And Chris, you may be getting a show very soon. We need to talk about that. But yeah, just do your thing. Cici, start us out. You know, you've got a pretty awesome show. At least I think so. Talk to the people about it, how they can find it, what it's all about, all that good stuff.
All right. So my show is The Crimson Dynasty. It's a sister channel of the Bama Standard. So you can catch us here on the Bama Standard Network on YouTube every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We typically have Coach Smook on as the guest co-host, which I know a lot of you are familiar with. And then sometimes we'll have different guests join or former players. So it's definitely, I think it's a fun show. It's good to kind of learn more about the opponent and what to expect, and, you know, maybe some key strategies to work against the opponent. So, and then if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at beauty_of_intelligence. That's primarily where I am. So, yeah.
Absolutely. When are you going to get on Twitter?
That's the thing. I have a Twitter account, but I do not use it. I think ever since like the whole Elon Musk thing, I just kind of, I don't know if I really want to be a part of that. So
the thing is, And audience who is watching right now, you've heard Cici on this show and on her show. Does she not give fire takes? We need to see those in Twitter. I'm telling you, you become a Twitter celebrity in terms of the
Okay.
sports world. If you were to start
Well,
pumping out information, you know your stuff. So
Yeah, I need to watch film with you.
look, hey, we can start doing that. Honestly, like I wish I would literally like pack up and go leave and go to Tuscaloosa and coach if I had the opportunity. Because honestly, I mean, we need all the help we can get. Everyone, I think the guys are hungry. And now Tommy Rees, you know, he heard what I said. Like he knew I was coming for his job. So, you know, he's tightened the ship.
You know, it's funny when you made that statement a few weeks back, things changed.
It did. That's
Like-
what I'm saying, Justin. I don't know. I mean, I can maybe, I don't know. I can still come take it though. So Tommy, you gotta keep on.
Hey, Chris, you gave me a good idea. Why don't you be on CC show next Wednesday night? I'd like
If
to
you're
see
available.
you two.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
let me know.
Let's see you two
Okay.
put some things together. I think we got
Yeah.
something special here. Luscion,
Yeah.
before I let Chris pop what he's got, you know, talk to the people about where they can find you. You are now a permanent member of the Final Whistle, so folks need to know about your show. And go ahead and unveil what we got coming for you on this network.
You know, as some of you might know, I'm on what I say is, no offense to anybody on this panel, but the greatest show, late night show of the Bama Standard, the Final Whistle. You can find us on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, talking football, talking Bama, talking, you know, the latest on what's going on in the locker room, and also some other crazy things that we get into. But
That's the truth.
also you can find me on Twitter at Rolush21 and Instagram and Facebook at Luscion 2. And got kind of an announcement. I don't know if we're ready to do it yet, but I am gonna be getting my own show. So stay tuned. We got that in the mix. So hopefully we can get that together very soon and get it out to y'all.
That's going to be on Thursday nights. We'll get a time out for everyone and a title, all that good stuff. So definitely be on the lookout for what he's bringing. Y'all love what he's bringing to the table. So now it's time for him to do his own thing. Chris, talk to the folks.
Well, you'll find me on one of these shows at some point. Like I said before, I don't know which one, but I'm only on Twitter right now at BG Chris Owens. I'm kind of taking the cleanse off of Instagram, all the rest of them. Just on Twitter, that's where all my news is. I got to keep up with everything NFL, college. But yeah, and tonight I'll be at the TCU Texas game if you happen to be there. Hopefully we get some help and hopefully kind of clean things up for the committee.
Man, that's awesome. Send a little negative vibes that the way of the Longhorns, if you don't mind. Speaking of TCU, man, I was really hoping that former Alabama running back Trey Sanders would really pop off there. This year, he hadn't really been able to get things going the way I had hoped. Hopefully, in his last few remaining games, he can pop off and have a great close to his career. It's unfortunate that the injury bug just wouldn't allow him to become who we all thought he would be. But hey, at this point in the season, it's November, about to be December. That's when the best football is played. That's when stars are born. Now's a great time for him to show up. But anyway, yeah, we appreciate everybody being here again. I want to remind everybody, Alabama's headed to Atlanta. We won the West. We have one more big game to go. Now, I'm not sliding UT Chattanooga, but we all know what's going to happen there. No disrespect to the Mocs. The Iron Bowl is ultimately what we're looking at. It's time to sit down, little brother, so we can get to Atlanta on a roll. Well, we're on a roll. Nobody's beating us right now. But, yeah, listen, we kicked some butt today, y'all. I think we can all agree to that. We did what we had to do, and I loved every minute of it. I'll remind everybody we got some great shows on this channel. As these people on this panel have said, there is no lineup that contends with what we got. Tuesday night, the Bama Standard, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Final Whistle, the nightcap, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday, the best show there is on Wednesday nights. Crimson Dynasty, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. I dare anybody to combat their analysis on there. And if you didn't know this, at 8:15 p.m. Central, 9:15 Eastern. George Teague with Teague's Take is going live on this channel right here. Friday nights are the game simulations with Coach Smook and Luscion right there. And then, as always, the nightcap, or if you want to call it a nightcap, the way we end games, the Bama Standard post-game show. So clearly we've got the best content out there. We want to thank everybody for being here with us today. As you leave the door, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching the replay, drop some love in the comment section below. Until next week, roll tide.
Roll Tide, y'all.
Right.